Welcome to today's video, where we're going to tackle a common issue that many of you may have faced when working with dynamic content. Have you ever tried to insert a new row between two existing rows, only to find that it doesn't quite stretch across the full width? As you expected, this can be frustrating, especially if you're trying to create a seamless user experience. But don't worry, we've got you covered. In this video, we'll explore how to make a dynamically created row expand to stretch across the full width when it's inserted between two existing rows. To understand why this happens, let's break down what's going on behind the scenes. When you insert a new row, the browser needs to recalculate the layout of the surrounding elements. However, if the newly inserted row doesn't have an explicit width set, it will often default to a narrow width, leaving gaps on either side. To overcome this issue, we need to use a combination of CSS and clever thinking. One approach is to use the Flexbox layout model, which allows us to create flexible containers that can adapt to changing content sizes. By setting the newly inserted row to be a flex container, we can instruct it to take up the full width available. But here's the thing, simply setting display flex on the new row isn't enough. We also need to make sure that the surrounding rows are aware of this new flexible container and adjust their layout accordingly. This is where things can get a bit tricky, but stick with me. One way to achieve this is by using the FlexGrow property on the newly inserted row. By setting FlexGrow1, we're telling the browser that this element should take up any remaining space in its parent container. But what about the surrounding rows? We need to make sure they're not competing for space with our new flexible row. To resolve this, we can use the margin property to create some breathing room between the rows. By setting a small margin on either side of the newly inserted row, we're effectively creating a buffer zone that allows it to expand freely without encroaching on its neighbors. Now let's talk about another important aspect, maintaining the overall layout integrity. When inserting a new row, it's essential to ensure that the surrounding elements adjust their position accordingly. This is where the flex shrink property comes into play. By setting flex shrink 0 on the newly inserted row, we're telling the browser that this element should not shrink or reduce its width under any circumstances. So, to recap, here are the essential points to remember. Use the Flexbox layout model to create flexible containers that can adapt to changing content size. Set display flex on the newly inserted row to make it a flexible container. Use FlexGrow1 to instruct the browser to allocate any remaining space in its parent container to this element. Apply small margins to either side of the newly inserted row to create a buffer zone and allow it to expand freely. Set flex shrink 0 on the newly inserted row to maintain its width and prevent shrinkage. And there you have it. With these simple yet powerful techniques, you should now be able to make dynamically created rows stretch across the full width when inserted between two existing rows. Remember to experiment with different values for FlexGrow, margin, and flex shrink to fine-tune your layout. If you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up, leave a comment below, and subscribe to our channel for more content on web development and design. Don't forget to hit that notification bell so you can stay updated on all our latest videos. What's your favorite technique for handling dynamic layouts? Share your thoughts in the comments section below.